Alt 98.7.
Gino D here with you. We're in our little interview lounge area here, and we're being visited once again by Joe P. Joe, welcome back to Chattanooga. Last time we talked, it was back in November of 2022. You just released the French Blonde project. Right. We were at the Wanderlinger Brewing Company. Our friends over there, you were able to do a little bit of an acoustic performance. Right. We gave away a bunch of tickets. Yeah. We were kind of celebrating the year that you had coming up, and it has been quite a year for you.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been busy. It's been I feel like I haven't been home in a while, which is, I feel like that's when you know you're doing the right stuff, you know, right. in a weird way. But yeah, so I just got off a West Coast tour, so that was the first West Coast tour I ever did, like headlining, and it was really cool. I mean, when you headline the East Coast, like I'm from New Jersey, so when I headlined there, it was still weird. Like I was like, no one's gonna come, you know, that kind of feeling. Because it feels like you're throwing a birthday party for yourself or something weird. But they did, and I could go, okay, well, maybe they saw me in New York or Jersey or whatever. But when you're in San Francisco, you're like, how do these people know?
Right.
And then a bunch of people showed up, and I was like, what? You know, so it was like a whole different kind of experience, kind of playing that far away from home, which I would imagine like Europe would be the next thing of like, what? How do you guys know? You know what I mean? Yeah. But so it's been really cool. Yeah. But.
So obviously the music's out and everybody's listening and streaming and everything, but is the power of social media must be huge for that too.
It is, unfortunately. That's the only way. I mean, it's like it's unfortunately, I would say.
Right.
But yeah, it's cool. I mean, I'm just trying to. The problem right now is I'm so busy that I haven't like thought to sit down and post this or do anything. That's the hard part. Is when you're on tour, like you really don't have time to do those kinds of things. It seems, which I guess is why people hire like a video person to follow them around and whatever. But yeah, I mean, like I'm excited, kind of almost for everything to be done. You know, as the industry kind of like shuts down at the end of the year.
Right.
I'm kind of excited for that so that I can get back to like the just full on like recording and writing, and because I have to finish like a whole album. That's like, so in the middle of that, I'm like, I gotta finish that. So they're sending me out like driving 7 hours to Raleigh today, but they're like, also finish that album. I'm like, okay.
Right.
I'll try and
get to it as soon as I can.
Yeah.
As soon as I can.
Yeah.
But you hasn't stopped you from putting out new music, though. We are playing your song "Don't Want to Love You" on Alt 98.7, of course. I know if you go to your Instagram, Glass House seems to be pretty popular right now. At least that's the one that seems to be pushing on your Instagram. Since, like you said, you haven't had a lot of time to post on that.
Yep.
So how has the creative process been from maybe the beginning, putting out, what was it, Emily Can't Sing, the EP, till now, releasing these new songs, the headlining tour?
Yeah.
We're going to talk about what you're working forward to for 2024.
Yeah.
So what's the process been for you? How's that experience been?
It's been great. I mean, it's been like super. I've been learning a lot as far as like, you know, every time you put out an EP. That's what's good about EPs versus like full records, or even versus singles. Is like you get that feeling of putting out a whole body of work. It's small, but it's something, and it gives you this feeling. It's a little more of something to be able to look at and have a tangible thing of like, this is what you are all about right now. Let's review it. And then you can improve on it or change things and tweak it and do the next EP. And so the album thing feels a little more like, okay, now I have to like get it right. Like if I gotta get this perfect, which isn't true. It's not, you know, it's not how music is, but like it has a bit more of that weight to it where I'm like, okay, I really want to do this right. And get everything perfect. But yeah, so it's just been like, I do everything myself for the most part. And I've slowly been kind of like expanding that and meeting people and being like, oh, like, you know, like this producer or this writer or whatever. And it's just like, I never came from that world of like co-writing and doing things in this way. I only ever came from like, it's 7th grade and we're in a band in a garage.
Right.
So I just like, I'm always searching for like, that's the only way I can make sense of like collaborating. It's not like, oh, they did this, they got a #1 with this person and whatever, you should work with them. Like that whole thing just feels weird to me. It feels very like non-musical. So I'm more about just like if I click with someone in that way that you do when you're in like 8th grade and you're in the garage, like that's how I'm trying to like grow my camp of people. I think it's just everyone I work with feels like they're in my band in a weird way. So yeah,
I can only assume that's the kind of the connection that you had with K-Flay doing the new version of Off My Mind.
Right, yeah.
It's funny, last year we were playing the original version of Off My Mind. Now this one has 20 million streams. Wow. It's #1 in AAA radio.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
So
talk about that collaboration. How did that come about? I mean, you're talking about K-Flay.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually really cool because we had never met before the song was recorded or out or anything like that, that was really interesting. I'd never done like such a remote type of thing.
Sure.
But she's all the way in LA and I'm in New Jersey, like, you know, and everyone's always like, hey, where are you based? And I'm like, New Jersey. And they're like, okay, see you later. Unless they're in New York, then it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it was this weird, like, we're too far away to really do anything and really meet and kind of whatever. So we just had a really good phone call. And like, I think COVID has made us all so good at like,
Yes.
like calling someone on the phone or FaceTiming or something and getting as much of an actual human connection out of it as possible. Whereas like before that, I think maybe it was easier to go like, well, we only FaceTime, so
Right.
we should really link up, you know.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good
like-
point. COVID
Yeah.
made it less awkward.
Yeah. We just like, we turned FaceTime into like, all right, this is all we have.
This is it. Yeah.
So you kind of,
It's
got
interesting.
better at it, and at the end of the calls, you would feel like, oh, I actually know that person.
Sure.
I really feel like it. So with her, it felt like that.
Very good point.
And then it's funny, we did the whole song, and it was like a lot of back and forth, and she can produce herself and record herself, so that was super good for like, if there were any tweaks or anything, it was just like, cool, I'll run down and do it again in my house in 5 seconds. It wasn't like, oh, I booked a studio, how am I going to get back? So it was super easy to do that, and then it was cool because we actually did link up and write together, and that's where like Glass House came from, was linking up and actually, meeting after feeling like we've met before and done a whole song before. Like that's what was so weird about it. It's like meeting someone after talking to them online for that long. But this was more like after making a song.
Sure.
So it was cool.
Let's talk about Glass House a little bit. It kind of explores the aftermath of a relationship
Yeah.
and the tangible reminders that they leave behind. Talk
That's
about
right.
the song Glass House so when people hear it, they
Yeah.
can know a little bit more of the insight into it.
Sure, yeah. I mean, the way it was born was really cool, just in LA with K-Flay and this guy Tommy English, who she works with all the time. And this is literally one of the first like co-writing sessions I ever did. Definitely the first one I ever did in LA. So I was just kind of like, man, going in, working with people that have like done things before, and I was looking up their credits before, that
Sure.
kind of, it's weird, but
Yeah,
that's,
yeah, but you got it.
but you can, I'm like, oh man, this dude did like Electric Love, like, oh my god, So I went in, and it was just like, it's cool though, because the music is very like unforgiving in that sense that it doesn't matter what you've done before, it's all about what happens that day in that room, and it could be awful, or it could be great, or mediocre. But it was cool. We just sat there, and I had an acoustic guitar. Usually I'm at the like the steering wheel of like producing and making everything on the computer, but it was his house and his setup, so he was kind of doing it.
Sure.
And which I think might have been nice in the sense of like it freed me up to just think in terms of like chords and singing, like
Be
just,
creative.
Yeah, and he was
Yeah.
kind of capturing it, which was really cool. And K-Flay was just there, kind of like helping push things over the edge of like. It was cool because she's not afraid to say anything, whereas like I was new to the co-writing thing,
Yeah.
and it's very embarrassing to like suggest something that might be terrible. So you kind of like make sure it's good by yourself. Like I would sing something to myself like da, 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 before I was ready to, and then I'd need someone to go like, what was that? That sounded pretty good. Where she would just go, she just
Sure.
like, didn't care, and I was like, that's so cool because it got us to a lot of really good moments where she was like so fearless with saying things that it allowed everyone to kind of get there, and then you got to what you really needed to get to lyrically or musically or anything like that. So I learned a lot in that session, and then Glass House came out of it, and then I went home, and it wasn't the way it sounds now. It was much more like cleaner, like almost like The Police or something like that, with this like arpeggiated guitar riff and everything. And I just like plugged in a distortion pedal and like played this main riff that starts the whole song. And I was like, this is a different thing. It's taking on this like angrier, meaner shape that I felt like it needed. Like it felt too like cheesy.
Sure,
good
you want
me,
to put an
whatever.
edge on it.
Yeah, like when I sang it and played it, it felt too nice. I was like, this is like too soft rock. I need to like, I guess I didn't even actively think this. It was just all of a sudden I looked down and I was playing it.
Right.
Then I posted that little clip on social media, and a lot of
That's
people
all it
liked
takes.
it. And it's good, but now I'm like, man, now I gotta finish this thing. Like I gotta like really record this, whatever.
I think I saw that post. I think people are actually saying, wait a
Probably.
minute, this isn't what we were introduced to. Or maybe you posted a snippet
Yeah.
that was a little different than what you posted. Or
Ugh,
something
it's-
like that.
It's the worst. man. Like it's the dumbest, and it's so funny because in that first post, it's just me playing a guitar and singing, and that's it. Because I had nothing else recorded yet. I literally made it for
Sure.
the video. And then as I finished it, obviously I added drums and things, and people are like, oh, go back to the original way. And I'm like, the original way is nothing. It's a 10-second intro. Like, songs can't just be that the whole time. Like, but that's the
We
problem.
blame TikTok for that.
That's it.
Everybody
TikTok,
wants
yes.
that 30 seconds. They're saying,
Everyone's
you
a
should play the
producer.
song on the radio. And it's
Yeah.
like, we will play songs on the radio, but at the same time, just because you enjoy that 10 seconds
So
doesn't mean the
weird.
rest of the
No,
song is there.
It doesn't make sense. It blows my mind. And people are just like, oh, like it was the drums, man. It was more raw without like the. I was like, it would have just been boring if I really played that the whole. Like I almost want to one day release an album of the versions of comments wanted.
Yeah.
And just be like, this is what you guys wanted, by the way. And it's really boring because it's 4-minute songs and there's no drums and they're all like, they all sound like they were in a kitchen or something. Like, it's so funny.
Everybody's a producer on
Yes.
social media.
But I
Everybody.
get like what people mean, like when they
course.
say, because you attach to a viral thing or whatever.
Yeah, and they connect to it and they like it.
And that's great.
It's great feedback for
Totally. But it's just like,
But it can add a little bit of work.
yes, where I feel like it never used to be like that before, like social media and being able to like tease clips. It was just like, you heard it on the radio or you bought the album and you heard the full song and you liked it or you didn't. Now it's like, you tease things and because you need to get like pre-saves and you need to just to have like traffic going through your channel or whatever.
Sure.
And it's good, but also people get really attached. Just like I do. Like with
Mhm.
demos, I do the same thing. Like I listen to a version of something on my phone and then like a voice memo. And then now it's hard for me to give that up as I like produce it out. Because as I do it, I get further away from that. And I go, oh, no, I don't want to lose that thing.
Going back to
So I get it, but
Sure,
I think it's funny. But yeah, and then that song just kind of took on this shape of like a bigger kind of like harder hitting, rougher song. Yeah.
Very cool. I mentioned we are playing I Don't Want to Love You.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to talk about that. Kind of a heartbreaking track, when it comes down to it, kind of. Making some waves. Delve into the creative process to that and behind that song and why you came out with that one. So when people hear it on Alt 98.7, they can know a little bit more.
Yeah, that one, it was like, I always had the intro of it. And like, this was one where I didn't start on an acoustic. I didn't start like on a piano. It was very like, I started with Logic pulled up, like producing, like playing it with this drum beat in mind. And I made the hook of it, the like main chorus hook, I made it on, I have this instrument where it's not like a synth and it's not like a keyboard or whatever, but you push a button and the harder you push it, the louder it is, and then it's a ring on a string that goes left, you can pull left and right, and it goes lower or higher. So it's like this very human instrument to play because it's just left to right, low and high, so you can and it's a keyboard is there, so you can play it like a keyboard, but this string goes in front of it that just like goes against all the rules of music, and you have every possible, it's like controlling someone's vocal cords. It's so cool.
Yeah.
So I made the like main hook on it and with the chords and was like, this is cool, and it was taking on this like disco beat type thing that I had never done before. And so I wrote the whole thing kind of like that, and then it was cool because I actually went back, and for lyrics I went to the acoustic thing. And now if you listen to it, if you like really hear the lyrics, it's funny because it sounds like such an acoustic, lyrically kind of written song, like a folk song, like kind of sad, dark, whatever. But the music's so like, when I wrote that, I was just like, this is so fun.
Yeah.
It was, and at the time I was like, I flipped my schedule to be waking up at 4 a.m. rather than like staying up till 4 a.m. and waking up at whenever. So I was doing that, and it was really cool because I was waking up with like this more positive, like, so the music I was making started having this more upbeat, like, yeah. So that's what that kind of sounds like to me.
Sure.
And then, yeah, lyrically it just became about like, to me it's like, it's funny because you could look at any song relationship-y, you could always do that. But to me it's just like, it could be about, like, for me, it's almost hits harder with just like what music is for me, which is like, I'll drive 7 hours to,
do what I have to do.
do what I have to do. And it's like, if someone told me to drive 7 hours to like shovel gravel, I'd be like, oh, I don't want to do that. I'm not doing that. But it's funny when you really love something, or someone, I guess you could put it, it really will make you do, like, you'll do anything for that thing or that person, and you'll change or you won't change. It's really just interesting. And I wrote it a lot about also like all your friends who like, you hang out with them and then they get a girl or a guy or whatever, and they hang out together and they're like, it's not as fun. Like, they're not as cool, whatever, because they're changing for that person.
Of course.
And you watch it in real time because it's your friend that you've known since first grade. And now all of a sudden, oh, I'm going to bring my girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever. And then they show up and you're at the bar hanging out or somewhere eating or something. And like, you're just like, oh yeah, you try to make the same jokes you do. And they're like, oh. And you're like, oh, okay. And it's, you see how, and it's like, I used to think of that as like a bad thing. Like, don't change, whatever. But it's also like, everyone's doing it, so it must be there's something about that that's naturally
I think it's growing, right?
Yes,
growing
I think
as a
so.
person, wherever the influence may be, so be it.
Yes.
But it's cool to have a song like that can be interpreted in many different ways,
Totally,
and that must be a cool thing as an artist too. I don't know how much feedback you've had from fans in that, but I know when I talk to some artists, they always like to enjoy the fan interpretation of the lyrics, or they say, I think it was I forget who it was one point, but the song was about addiction, and then somebody was like, well, that's actually about my latest romance.
Oh,
and the person's
wow.
mind was blown. Was like, wow,
Yeah.
I never thought of it that
That's
way. But
cool.
it could be that.
It totally
So
could
now
be.
that's, I think, the beauty of music, right?
Yes.
Is to be able for that
Totally.
interpretation to be wide open.
I love that. That's my
wide
favorite.
open.
Yeah.
This has been a lot of fun, Joe. Thank you again for stopping on
Yeah,
by.
of course.
Looking forward to the next year now. You're going on tour with the Cold War
Yeah,
Kids.
it's
Gonna be
crazy.
opening for them for their 20th tour. Is that what they're
Yeah.
calling it? The 20th year tour?
Yeah.
The 20 years tour.
Yeah.
How does it feel to be part of such an established tour, Cold War Kids?
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. And what are we expecting for this big one?
I don't know, man. It's cool because now I'm used to headlining. So my
Sure,
set is
it's
like
gonna
an
be a little
hour and
different,
half,
right?
and I'm like, okay, I got to cut it down to like 40 minutes. But I'm also kind of excited because of that. Like, there's something about because with the first headlining tour, I remember thinking like, oh no, like I don't know how to do this. I only know how to open, which is so easy in the sense of like you're the underdog. No one paid to see you. No one expects anything. All you got to do is be okay, and you're great because you've given them this extra little thing that they didn't expect. And I love that feeling of just like trying to win over the audience. But when you headline, you've already won them over. They paid to
They're
see
here
you.
for you, yeah.
They're saying you're already good. So now just keep being good. It's
Right.
like, no.
Just don't mess it up.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. And I was like, oh no. But I got really used to that and had fun with it. It was like, no, it's fine. It's just like an easier way to get people more into it because they're already on your side. So with this now, I'm like, I am kind of excited to go back because it's like, okay, cool. Now this seems so much easier to me. Just like, we're so like polished from touring that it's like, cool. We just get to like condense it down into like greatest hits kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like best of moments that we know our set has, and just jam 40 minutes full of just like chaos and try to just like, go nuts. But yeah, it's exciting. It's cool because it's like, like I grew up listening to their songs.
I know,
and stuff.
right?
So it's weird because of that. It's going to be weird, like standing on the side stage, like, oh wow, this is, or meeting them or whatever
Of
it is.
course, the
it's
whole
like
process, I'm
Yeah,
sure,
it's
sometimes has to be
kinda odd.
surreal at times.
Totally, yeah. Our merch next to their merch, it'll be like, what? Like, what world is this? So yeah, I'm excited. It's gonna be cool, and it's not too long, so it's gonna be super easy with like. And also, when you open, you get to get there later because your sound check is the last part,
Yep.
and then you get to leave earlier because you don't have to break down all your stuff like at the end of the night.
Right.
So I'm kind of excited for that too because on the last tour it was really fun, but like you get there at like 2 p.m. You don't get to go anywhere because you're sound checking. Then you got to play. Then by the time you're out of there, it's like 1 a.m. and everything's closed. So you don't see the town. You don't get to eat any of the food.
Can't visit
or,
the city.
It's
yeah,
the worst.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm kind of like, this is kind of nice. We can like take our time getting there. Then on the day of and getting out of there, we can do cool stuff. So.
Well, congratulations on all the
Thanks.
success. We'll be sure to check out the tour. I think the closest it's coming for us when it comes to the Cold War tour is coming up on March 9th at the Buckhead Theater in Atlanta. Right here in
Cool.
Chattanooga, we either go to Nashville or Atlanta for our shows
okay,
if we're
yeah.
not coming here. So
That's
people will be
perfect.
able to check that out.
Yeah.
And we'll, of course, put all the links and all the details up on our website so people can check it out.
Yeah.
Where can people follow you for more info?
I would just type in Joe P. the Hyena.
Yeah.
And it comes up.
Joe P. the Hyena.
That's it. It was the only thing that wasn't taken.
Very cool. All right, so that's it, Joe P. You're going to play some songs for us?
Let's do it.
We'll do some acoustic stuff.
Yeah.
And we'll be right back right here on Alt 98.7.
Alt 98.7.